Hello, good morning. Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, channel that brings you your team every single day, guys. We're going to talk, we're going to just last check in on some of our international stars as we break out of this international break finally. We're also going to talk a bit more about the takeover after an interview that was given by Lyall, a merchant banker, about the takeover. Some interesting bits and pieces. Some interesting rumours that I've heard coming out of Leeds United as regards the 49ers enterprises and their future ownership of Leeds. Also got on in the background as well, just watching the time of recording. It's actually about 11 o'clock at night here whilst I'm recording the video the night before the video goes out. We've got the Morocco game on at this moment in time. Morocco 70 minutes 2-0 up at this moment in time. Hamza's not on yet though. Hamza has not come on yet for Morocco. They've just made a couple of subs, but one of them, they're not yet Hamza. So we'll wait and see. Obviously, see if Hamza gets on tonight for Morocco. Václav Černý played for Czechia or the Czech Republic tonight. 4-0 victors over Gibraltar. Černý did score as well. Good to see him get on the scoreline. Good to see him stay in a positive frame of mind when it comes to form and it comes to goal scoring. Obviously, we want him in the best possible form to continue in towards the end of the season, particularly obviously with the Europa League up and coming. We do want that to drive there from Václav today, and obviously to look at him obviously continuing the excellent form that he's come in. Wales drew 1-1 tonight with North Macedonia. Bojan Miovski, remember him, of Aberdeen fame, now of Girona. He scored in the 91st minute. Goal then equalised by David Brooks in the 96th minute for Wales. Tom Lawrence and Rabbi Matondo were in the Wales squad for that game tonight. Rabbi Matondo did get on, rated 3.5. Tom Lawrence did not get on and did not make an appearance for Wales, however. So obviously Tom will be coming back fully refreshed and ready to go for the end of the season, and maybe even the end of his Rangers career, because obviously his contract comes to the end at the end of this season. So interesting decisions to make for Tom and for the club over Tom Lawrence as to what happens with him. I mean, speaking personally, I think it's probably time that Tom moved on. He's when he's been fit, he's done all right for Rangers. He hasn't done amazingly, he hasn't done terribly, he's done okay. But I think given the fact that he's swallowing up a considerable amount of wages. And I think obviously the fact he's out of contract, he's not getting any younger. I think if we can move him on, obviously if he leaves for nothing, the only thing we get is his wages back. We obviously won't get a transfer fee, but I think there's a strong likelihood now that Tom Lawrence will leave at the end of the season. I mean, I just can't see him staying. I think if Philippe Clement had still been here, I actually could have seen him staying. I think Philippe Clement really liked Tom Lawrence. Other action tonight, obviously the Northern Irish going down 5-1 to Sweden tonight. Alexander Isak, the in-demand Swedish striker, did score, as did Anthony Elanga of Nottingham Forest tonight. For Sweden in that 5-1 victory over Northern Ireland. Ross McCausland was an unused substitute in that game. So hopefully now, the international break is over, and obviously all focus will turn back to Rangers, turn back to league action, with the Dundee game coming up on Saturday at 5:30. There will be a live watch along here on the channel, guys, so please obviously come and join us for that live watch along. It'd be good to have as many of you as possible in the conversation, in the chat. Come and join in as we get back to league action. It'd be a tough game away at Dens Park. They're bang back in form. They won the Ding Dong Dundee derby last time out, didn't they? And obviously, Tony Docherty will be anxious, I think, to keep up the decent record they've got against us at Dens Park recently. So, can Rangers continue their improvement in their away form? That would be the big question. Now, one of the things, obviously, linking into that Dundee game at the weekend will be the status of Lyall Cameron. Lyall Cameron, obviously, joins Rangers in the summer. Um, and, I think there's a lot of excitement around the arrival of Lyall. He's a very promising, talented young player. I think, seen as a little bit of a level up from Connor Barron in terms of his abilities and his talents. He can certainly play in a number of different positions. He can play wide, he can play in the 8 role, he can play in the 10 role. He scores goals, he creates goals. He's a really, really good player. Now, as we know, he's penned a pre-contract with Rangers, and he will... he will actually come and he will be able to play against us this weekend. Now, Tony Docherty has been speaking pre that game already, and he said that he has no concerns about fielding Lyall Cameron against Rangers this weekend. He said even though he will be swapping Dens Park for Ibrox, he said, and he was unavailable, obviously, due to injury, rather conveniently, for the last meeting. He is available now. He's been on the grass training all week, and Docherty insisted that his performance in the Ding Dong Dundee derby showed that he is still willing to give everything to Dundee until the end of the season. Now, Cameron has had an Achilles knock, which has kept him out of training, but he will be... obviously, pushed to make sure that he is back and available for that game on Saturday. And apparently Cameron is anxious to play as well. He said it's not at all a difficult decision for me and for the player. My relationship with Lyall is top drawer. He's a brilliant boy and he will give everything for this football club, as you can see from his performance in the derby. He was gutted that his goal was ruled out against Dundee United in the derby through VAR. I think you've seen, and I think every Dundee supporter has seen the level of his commitment. And I think that was something that Dundee fans kind of got on his back about. There was a little bit of criticism, wasn't there, after it was announced that he was going to join Rangers. Certainly he got quite a bit of abuse from Dundee fans post that game, didn't he? He said, I think that every Dundee supporter has seen a level of commitment. The last game he wasn't available. He's carrying a wee knock, and we are managing that knock on his Achilles at the moment. As you can see, he's training with the squad behind us now, and at the moment he is more than available and right up for Saturday's game. I think everybody will see a really committed Lyall Cameron, who is giving everything for Dundee Football Club. So it'll be interesting to see, won't it? Lyall Cameron come play against Rangers, and we'll see what sort of how he plays, how he performs. I suppose at the end of the day, look, he's going to be anxious to impress. He's going to be anxious to impress Barry Ferguson. He's going to be anxious to impress the players. He's going to be anxious to show that he's of the standard that he's required to play for Rangers, and he's got a great opportunity this weekend to show that. And no doubt he'll be bang up for that game. And look, Rangers fans, will be anxious to see Lyall, to see how he performs, to see what sort of player we're going to be getting next season. So it's just kind of win-win. Let's just hope he doesn't score or play too well. Let's hope he has an outstanding performance, but an outstanding performance in a losing performance for Dundee. But certainly one to add a bit of spice and keep the game at the weekend interesting. Lyall Cameron obviously playing for Dundee. Right, let's talk takeover. As you can see on the picture on the screen, we've got Andrew Kavanagh, the health insurance mogul, and Greta Steinson, technical director for Leeds United. Now, it's quite interesting, isn't it, that Greta Steinson does seem to accompany Parag Marathe and Andrew Kavanagh wherever they go at this moment in time. You've got Andrew Kavanagh, obviously, who's attended quite a few of Rangers' last few games. Obviously, he was there for the Fenerbahce game, was there for the Celtic game. And Celtic game, Greta Steinson was also in accompaniment of both Parag Marathe and Andrew Kavanagh. I think this is a fascinating one, because obviously Greta Steinson does have a job at this moment in time, but many people are actually saying that Greta Steinson could well be the next sporting director of Rangers once the takeover is complete. Steinson certainly seems to have the ear of both Marathe and Kavanagh, and I know that Marathe certainly rates Steinson as an excellent technical director, an excellent sporting director in effect, and obviously that is somebody who will have an absolute key role to play at Rangers. Now, as we revealed on the video yesterday, Steinson will play a role in the manager recruitment for Rangers in the summer, and obviously I think it's probably ongoing at the moment. Steinson has an excellent reputation and has obviously worked with some absolute top class managers over his time in football. As I mentioned yesterday on yesterday's video, he's worked with Ancelotti, he's worked with Benitez, just to name but two top managers the man has worked with. Now, in terms of what's been said about this move, I was watching the interview that I'm sure many of you have seen now, because it was featured on Rangers Review. It was featured on the Warm Up podcast with Stephen Naismith and the other dude whose name I can't remember now. And Les Allen was talking very much, about this takeover process, and he was talking about the fact that as Rangers fans, we should be getting excited. Hopefully, obviously, once this takeover finally completes, and obviously, there's a lot of optimism that it will complete, that it won't hit any last-minute hitches, and then it will all go ahead. Andrew Kavanagh was desperate to get into football in some way, and when the opportunity arose for him to get into football, it was able to organise a link between him and Rangers, and obviously, he was able to, with Parag Marathe, secure enough shares to get 51% of the club. Now, one of the most telling things for me on that interview was the discussion around, the whole ownership model, the whole idea of, taking Rangers to the next level in terms of moving Rangers forward. And, the biggest thing that was kind of the attraction point for Kavanagh and for Parag Marathe and the 49ers Enterprises was the Europe situation. Now, as I said on the podcast last night, if you haven't caught that, please obviously check that out, the International Break podcast. It went out last night about 8 o'clock. We talked, didn't we, about the fact that Europe is key. We talked about Europe being absolutely massively important, and we talked obviously about the fact that this is the thing that's really attracted the club. It attracted the owners towards buying the club. Europe is the big pulling factor now. Getting if you're Leeds United and you're a Leeds United fan, and Leeds, don't get me wrong, big club, it's not as big as Rangers, but big club, great set of fans, loyal fans. My dad's a Leeds fan. They will have aspirations to get back into Europe. That will be clear. Obviously you've got a number of places available in the Premier League. But at this moment in time, there is realistically no chance of them doing that. And in the Premier League, the competition for European places is massive. It's intense, and you look at the number of teams that are in the Premier League who can get European places. It is huge. You've got even the likes of Bournemouth and Brighton and Brentford getting involved in that race at this moment in time, with the likes of Villa and Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, Manchester City, Tottenham, and etc., etc. Whereas in Scotland, obviously, it's pretty much guaranteed that season in, season out, that Rangers and Celtic will qualify for Europe and will probably qualify for the Champions League as long as we maintain 2 Champions League places. Yes, we will have to qualify next season for the Champions League, but we do get Champions League football, and it was explained that obviously that in Scotland you have a much better opportunity to get European football because of the number of places available and the obviously the reduced number of teams in the league. Now, Rangers are pretty much guaranteed, barring an absolute disaster, European football every single season, which, as we know, is a cash cow. It's a cash generator. At the end of the day, you can look at Scotland and you can look at England and you can look at Scotland, you can look at the revenues that come into Scotland, and they're nothing compared to what European football. I mean, even Premier League prize money doesn't compare to Champions League money. So the 49ers Enterprises and Andrew Kavanagh have quite clearly seen the fact that Rangers, who are a massive club, obviously, and have that pull, but not only that, have the opportunity to play in Europe every season. Now, they see Europe as key. They see Europe as so important to this club. So looking at that, the situation is quite clear for me that they will push for Champions League football. Why would they push for Champions League football? And I know this will upset some Rangers fans who love their little Thursday nights, but we've got what we want and what we need is to get back used to Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Champions League nights. That's what we need. And as you saw with Celtic this year, the league phase doesn't necessarily have to be as intimidating and as scary as it was in the past. I think lots of Rangers fans are still very much scarred by the whole situation around that group of death that we were in. The fact that we were stuck with Napoli, we were stuck with Ajax and Liverpool, and we got absolutely trounced. And look, that was always going to be hard, wasn't it? It was always going to be hard. So that's not the case anymore. This new league phase means that you play more games and you have more opportunities to progress. You have more opportunities to get into the knockout round, and then obviously beyond that, it's not as tricky as it once was. And I think that gives you more hope going to that Champions League. But not only that, but the money is the big thing. And if you compare that, obviously, with the 6 figures you get for winning games in the Europa League, for example. I mean, let's just give you some for instances, okay? If you win a game in the league phase, you get 2.1 million euros. That's about 1.6 million pounds for winning a game. The Europa League is £700,000. It's not as much, or anywhere near. I think it's even less than that. It's nowhere near as much as the 2.1 million. Even for drawing in the league phase, you get €700,000, about £500,000 for drawing in the league phase. If you reach the knockout playoff round, you get a further £1 million. Okay, the round of 16. If you were to progress there, you get €11 million. 12.5 for the quarterfinals, 15 for the semis, 18.5 for being a runner-up, 25 million for winning it. Now, that's without the money you automatically get for qualifying for the Champions League, which is massively, bigger than the money you get in the Europa League. If you qualify for the league phase, you can expect around 18 to 20 million pounds. Rangers have earned 11 million from the Europa League for getting to the quarterfinals. You get 20 million just for getting into the group phase, the league phase. Now, if that's the case, if you can go on and perhaps win, say 4 of your league games and draw another couple, so for example, you can make another 10 million. Let's put another 10 million on that. So that's 30 million. And let's say you reach the knockout round, 31 million. Well, even if you get knocked out at that stage, you've made 31 million pounds. And that's automatically more than you get for winning the Europa League. So, and that's without your gate receipts, your TV revenues, etc., etc. So you can see why Champions League will be such an attractive proposition for the 49ers enterprises and for Andrew Kavanagh. So I think there will be a real drive from them to put money into the club, to bring in the level of player that's going to get us Champions League football. There will be a real drive to get the manager right, to get the players right, and get players in who can get us to the Champions League. And, that's what's not to get excited about playing Champions League football. Yes, you may play some of the top teams in Europe and be shredded. If you come up against Real Madrid or Liverpool or Arsenal or Barcelona or Inter Milan or someone like that, yes, it's going to be exceptionally tough to get anything out of those games. But, some of the teams that are in the group phases, we will stand a chance against. We've beaten some of the more trickier teams than we're in the Champions League this season in the Europa League. So, look, that's optimism. And I think, they will put us in a position with the money. Yes, it will only be 25 million plus whatever we make in player sales. And obviously with the managerial appointment to get into the Champions League. And that's got to be the drive and the focus at the start of the season. Absolute massive focus on that. The other things that they've talked about, there's another couple of things they've talked about, was number one, obviously, on those, was looking at the commercial model. Now, the San Francisco 49ers are a massively successful operation in the United States of America. They've won 5 World Championships, 5 Super Bowls. I know some of you may laugh at the fact they call them World Championships, considering all the teams that play in it are based in one country. So quite how you can call it a World Championship, I don't know. But there you go, they do. The 49ers are a phenomenally successful franchise at pulling in money from external revenue sources through stadium sponsorship, through sponsorship of the stadium, through other revenue streams to bring in money to the club, to the team. It was interesting that the Niners owner Jed York is selling a 10% stake in the San Francisco 49ers. Now, that 10% stake is worth around $9 billion. $9 billion. Now, that is an astronomical amount of money for 10% of the business, which would value the business at around about 90 billion, which is absolutely mental. And that is down to not only the assets they have in terms of Levi Stadium and the players they have. Yes, they have let a lot go, but they've still got some very talented players on their roster, like Christian McCaffrey, like Brandon Ayuk, like Brock Purdy, like Fred Warner, George Kittle. There's some real talent there. But, they are also a team that brings in a massive amount of revenue, that knows how to attract and tap in massive revenue. That is something they will bring to Rangers, that will give us an opportunity to bring in much needed external revenue to boost the money we bring into the club on top of any Champions League revenue, player sale revenue. And as I've said to you before, PSR maintains that you can spend 82% of the revenue that comes into your club. Now, if you're increasing your sponsorship revenue, your kit revenue, etc., you are going to increase the amount you can spend on players' wages to bring in quality and talent to the club, or standing the club in very good stead. The final thing that they've talked about, which is obviously, it's a number of things, but what I want to talk about today is the training ground. Now, Auchenhowie is an excellent training facility. You look at Auchenhowie, you certainly see some of the pictures, the videos that come from there in the build up to games, and you can't be anything but be impressed. But apparently Andrew Kavanagh has toured the facility with Greta Steinson, and they have already started to suggest improvements that can be made in terms of the facilities there, the standard of the facilities there, the strength and training facilities, the medical facilities, etc. Now, you're talking about working with an organisation in the San Francisco 49ers who have the state-of-the-art equipment, who have the state-of-the-art stuff in their facilities in America to improve fitness, to improve strength and conditioning, to improve all hosts of things at their training facilities. In the recent NFLPA survey, the 49ers training facilities were voted in the top 5 out of the 32 teams that play in the NFL. So we're dealing with class here. We're dealing with excellence here. So this is, again, something to get excited about. And as I said on the podcast last night, I can't help but feel optimistic and excited about the future. New owners coming in, bringing in money, bringing in new ideas, bringing in fresh blood, bringing in real ideas about how to turn this club into a modern 21st century club that is moving in the right direction, rather than a club that seems to be stuck in the 1970s, run by used car dealers who don't have a clue. This is the way forward now. And obviously we're getting a new manager, new players. It's all very positive. And look, the other side of the city can mock all they want about trophies and trebles and I don't give a monkeys at the moment. I just don't really care what they've got to say. And they're boring. They genuinely are boring at this moment in time. Someone needs to go and hose them down with some water just to cool them off. Václav, get busy. Right, guys, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, on the way out, if you can like, comment and subscribe and share the video, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for watching. Please remember always, we are the people.